Love in the fast lane. It was a typical Monday morning when I first saw her. I was running late for work, juggling my coffee and briefcase, when I stumbled into the elevator. That's when I saw Brittany. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight just right, and her green eyes seemed to pierce right through me. We exchanged a polite nod, but my heart was racing faster than my usual morning jog. As the elevator doors closed, I noticed she dropped her scarf. I grabbed it just as the doors slid shut. With a grin, I decided this was my chance. But when I reached my floor, she was nowhere to be seen. I was left holding a purple scarf, wondering if I'd ever see her again. By lunchtime, I couldn't get Brittany out of my mind. My boss, James, noticed my distraction and raised an eyebrow. "Earth to Jamal," he said, snapping his fingers. "We've got a meeting in 10 minutes. I nodded, trying to focus, but my thoughts were still on that mysterious woman. Later that evening, I walked into the local cafe for a much-needed break. To my surprise, there she was, sitting by the window, reading a book. I approached her, nervously holding out her scarf. She looked up, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "Hey, you dropped this in the elevator this morning," I said, trying to sound casual. Brittany smiled and took the scarf. "Thank you, Jamal. I was wondering where it went." Before I could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression turning serious. "Sorry, I have to take this," she said, stepping outside. I watched her through the window, her face a mix of worrying and frustration. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to follow her. Outside, she was pacing back and forth, speaking in hushed tones. Just as I was about to turn back, I overheard her mention something about her brother, Addison, being in trouble. Brittany hung up and sighed, looking utterly defeated. I approached her cautiously. "Is everything okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned. She looked at me, surprised, then shook her head. "No, it's not. My brother's gotten himself into some serious trouble, and I don't know how to help him." Without thinking, I offered, "Maybe I can help." Brittany hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but this might get dangerous." Brittany and I drove to a seedy part of town where Addison was last seen. The tension was thick, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Brittany explained that Addison had gotten involved with some dangerous people, and she feared for his safety. We found Addison cornered by a group of shady-looking guys. Brittany's eyes widened in fear, but I stepped forward, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey, what's going on here?" One of the guys, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, sneered at me. "Who are you supposed to be? His knight in shining armor?" I took a deep breath. "Something like that. How about you let him go, and we can all walk away from this?" The man laughed, but his amusement was short-lived as police sirens blared in the distance. In the chaos that followed, Addison managed to break free, and we all made a run for it. We hid behind a dumpster, catching our breath. Addison looked at Brittany, guilt written all over his face. "I'm sorry, Brittany. I never meant for things to get this bad." Brittany hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Just promise me you'll stay out of trouble from now on." Addison nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. I watched them, feeling a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. Just as I thought things were calming down, my phone buzzed. It was a message from James. "Urgent meeting tomorrow. Don't be late." I sighed, realizing that my life was far from ordinary now that Brittany was in it. But strangely, I didn't mind at all. The next morning, I walked into the office, trying to focus on the upcoming meeting. James was already there, looking impatient. "You're cutting it close, Jamal," he said, tapping his watch. I nodded, taking my seat. As the meeting started, I couldn't help but think about Brittany and Addison. I glanced at my phone, half expecting a message from Brittany, but there was nothing. Just as I was about to refocus on the meeting, the office door burst open. Brittany stood there, out of breath and clearly distressed. "Jamal, I need your help again. It's urgent." James looked at me, confused. "What's going on, Jamal?" I stood up, my mind racing. "I have to go. It's a personal emergency." Without waiting for a response, I followed Brittany out, my heart pounding with anticipation. Brittany led me to a warehouse on the outskirts of town. Addison's gone missing again, she explained, her voice trembling. I think he's in serious danger this time. We entered the dimly lit warehouse, the air thick with tension. Suddenly, we heard a noise from the back. We crept closer, and there was Addison, tied to a chair, looking battered but alive. Before we could react, the same burly man from before appeared, blocking our path. I warned you to stay out of this, he growled, pulling out a gun. Brittany gasped, but I stepped forward, trying to stay calm. Let's not do anything hasty, I said, raising my hands. The man sneered. You're in over your head, hero. Just then, the warehouse door slammed open, and a group of undercover cops stormed in, guns drawn. The burly man dropped his weapon, realizing he was outnumbered. The cops quickly secured the area, and Addison was freed. Brittany hugged him tightly, tears of relief streaming down her face. I watched them, feeling a strange mix of pride and exhaustion. One of the officers approached me. Thanks for the tip-off, he said with a nod. We've been after this gang for months. I smiled, realizing that my quick thinking had paid off. Brittany looked at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Jamal, you saved us. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Just another day in the life. Brittany laughed, and for the first time in days, everything felt right. We walked out of the warehouse, the sun rising on a new day. As we left, I realized that my life had taken a wild turn, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Remember to subscribe